Well, welcome everyone. My name is Tatiana Castellino. I'm one of the dietitians here at Pro Healthcare, and today we're going to tackle the refrigerator. I trust we all have one in our kitchen, and sometimes it can feel like the Mary Poppins bag of the kitchen where things just keep popping up. Things are deep down in there. We're pulling our hands in and saying, what is that? Hopefully we're going to kind of start fresh, really get down to the basics of food labeling and understanding just how to kind of keep the inside of our fridge not only physically clean, but then at the end we'll talk about some of the specific foods that we really want to be focusing on keeping in our refrigerator and keeping on hand in our homes. So, like I said, we're going to talk about claims and expiration dates. I know that I get a lot of questions about that and just kind of understanding what does the use by, sell by, what does all that kind of mean, and how do I know when something needs to hit the trash, and how long can I keep something in my fridge. So hopefully you'll be able to go away today with a little more clarity and kind of peace of mind for a whole host of different foods and just kind of keeping you safe. And then coming up with an organization plan for the inside of the refrigerator. Where should we be keeping certain foods versus others, the produce drawers, the freezer, kind of the whole thing. And then at the end, we'll wrap up with what are some of the things that we definitely want to keep on hand in the fridge, and then maybe what are some of the things that as we are kind of cleaning out and starting fresh, that we want to remove and maybe not find their way back into our kitchen. So first and foremost, product labeling. So I put the four most common ones that I see out there: best if used by, sell by, just use by, and freeze by. These are really common labels that we will see on a whole host of products, whether they're fresh or fresh meats and seafoods or canned goods, things like that. And what you're going to notice about each one of the ones listed here is none of these are safety dates. None of these have anything to do necessarily with the physical safety of eating a particular food. Most of these have everything to do with quality. So a food manufacturer will do studies to say, how long does our particular product last on a shelf once it's not opened? How long can we keep it in that package? How long can we keep it in that can? How long is it still going to be at its peak quality for the consumer? The sell by is communicated to the management of the grocery store. How long should we be keeping these on the shelves to sell to consumers? Again, all of this is not safety related as much as quality related. You might see that on a package, and it doesn't mean that you have to automatically throw it away if you've gone past that date. It's just a matter of the quality might start to deteriorate a little bit a day to a week after that date. And that's just based on studies that food manufacturers do on their particular products. They will make a box of whatever it is and keep it for a week, keep it for 2 weeks, keep it for a month, keep it for a year, and they will have quality assurance folks test, what does that food taste like? Did it hold up? What's the texture? Is it what the consumer would expect if they had purchased it day one off the line? So keep that in mind, that those are quality dates, not necessarily safety dates. I did pull the next two slides from the USDA website. These are safety date recommendations. Now, they use the generic, if you see a use by date, follow that date. Kind of goes along the line of when in doubt, throw it out. So a use by date is something you can use as your safety, but not necessarily knowing that it is just a quality date. This would be a more accurate or kind of realistic date to be using for how long you're going to be keeping things in your refrigerator, from your poultry, your beef, ground meats, eggs. That's a really big one. Most people throw away eggs prematurely. You can really keep them up to 5 weeks past the date that's listed on the carton. Again, that date that's listed on the carton is quality. So to keep them a month after, it might not be as fresh, and you might definitely be able to tell that they aren't as fresh, but from a safety perspective, absolutely still safe to eat up to 5 weeks past the posted date. You'll also see here, again, that continuation of the list. I pulled this from our USDA site for cooked products, whereas the other one was our fresh products. Again, you can feel free to use the use by date if that is what feels best. If it doesn't smell funky, if it looks funky, you can absolutely follow the listed dates that we have here. So like I had mentioned, or like Ashley had mentioned about sending out the PowerPoint, hopefully you all have access to these moving forward. Check them out, keep them in your favorite cookbook or in your kitchen somewhere, just as like a safety backup. One other resource that I had pulled that I didn't write down, but if you've got a pen and paper, it's a really easy website. It's ask.usda.gov, so ASK period USDA period GOV. This is a USDA consumer website where you can go in and type in your question. How long is this going to last? How long is that going to last? And they have quick and easy links for most common questions, all about the safety of how long we can keep particular foods in our refrigerators, in our homes, and not put ourselves at risk for foodborne illness. So again, that was ask.usda.gov as another resource outside of these that are listed in front of you. We also have two different types of dating. So the dating that says use by, sell by, those are called open dating guidelines. And these are going to be found primarily on those fresh meats, poultries. Closed dating. So this is something that we might not know is called closed dating, but it is. You purchase a canned good or you purchase a packaged good and it's got a bunch of mumbo jumbo. You're like trying to look for the date. How long is this going to last? And it comes with a bunch of other stuff, maybe some letters, a hodgepodge of numbers. We really don't understand what it means. It's actually not meant for the consumer. Those terms, those letters, those numbers, those phrases that they might put on there, those are really meant from a tracking perspective. So that let's say that there's a recall on a particular food. Those are the labels or the dating that we would use to be able to say this grocery store sold, 500 of these products, and we can see based on the tracking that we do from that closed dating that we see on packages. So we as consumers really care about the open dating, closed dating more for tracking, but in the case of a recall, that's what those other kind of weird numbers and letters might mean if we've ever thought about that. And then the last resource that I want to mention as kind of a food safety thing is the Food Keeper app. So if anybody has a smartphone, uses free apps, Food Keeper, FOODKEEPER, just as it sounds. You would type that into your Play Store, into your App Store, and that would be a free app from the USDA, again, allowing you to look up particular food products and see how long they're going to last in your refrigerator once they're opened or if they're frozen. Just another kind of resource to keep us safe, because I know a lot of us can keep things in the fridge maybe longer than we should. I don't know. But again, when in doubt, throw it out. If it smells funky, looks funky, you have any doubt whatsoever, it is not worth the risk of getting a foodborne illness. Not worth it. I know a lot of folks struggle with I don't want to be wasteful. Well, if you get sick on some bad food, you're going to be wasteful anyways because it's going to be coming out in places you don't want to. So just putting that out there, being honest. All right. So we want to be safe. We want to make sure we're keeping our foods the way or as long as we need them to. But we also want to make sure that we're keeping the environment that we're keeping our foods in clean and sanitary. So cleaning our refrigerator really should be probably more often activity than most of us do. So here are just some strategies on how to keep our fridges clean. First and foremost is packing any type of scent. Sometimes we can get some funky smells in our fridge, especially if we're leaving things in there longer than they should be. So making sure that you keep a box of baking soda open in the refrigerator from 1 to 3 months. And a lot of people ask, well, why does that work? I know it does, but why does it work? Well, the reason that it works is because most scents are acidic in nature. So those bad smells, those odors, those aromas have some type of acidic quality. Baking soda being a base helps to neutralize or kind of absorb those acidic scents into their compounds so that our fridges don't smell bad. You do want to make sure, though, that you are switching out that box of baking soda, like it says, every 1 to 3 months, because it can only do so much work and then it kind of neutralizes itself. So we got to put a fresh one in there. Making sure that we are cleaning our shelves and the inside of our fridge. Soap and water. Okay, so I put on there, you can do baking powder. Simple, just like dish soap and a cloth with some warm soapy water, just cleaning things out, pulling those drawers out, cleaning them under your running water in your sink. I mean, you can't go wrong with soap. You can also do that baking powder with a cup of water. Another option is vinegar. Vinegar can definitely help to cut the grease and the grime and the sticky stuff that can sometimes end up on our refrigerator shelves. And that would be a 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 cup vinegar, 1 cup water, get in there, really kind of work on the grease. But if it's just general cleanliness, hey, I want to go in there, it's been a while, I don't have any necessarily sticky things, you can really just do some soap and water, wipe out those shelves. And then I put on there if you do have a backup refrigerator. I know a lot of folks might keep an extra fridge maybe out in their garage for if they go hunting and they have meats, or they, in a previous life when we had parties and we would keep extra beverages and things like that. Consider keeping maybe some of the foods that you don't regularly consume. Maybe those things are in the freezer, those meats, in a separate fridge or freezer if you have access to it. And really the reason being, one, it helps with rotation, but it also helps to ensure that we are not overfilling the space. So it's really important that we get airflow in our refrigerators and our freezers to really keep those things at the correct temperatures. So consider that if you do have a backup option, to kind of just distribute our food evenly so that we're not jamming it in and just not getting the really good cleaning power. So recommendations. So this one made myself, I think, a little note on here. I told my husband this morning, I guarantee that during this presentation, I'm going to find a reason to talk about our Sunday fridge, Friday fridge. We have this thing in our house where on Saturday or Sunday, we generally go grocery shopping and the fridge is full. It's ready for the week. It's got all my lunches. It's got all the stuff. By Friday, it looks like a brand new fridge, like we just bought it from Home Depot and we don't look like we have any food. Please know that it is important that you are getting through your stock. When was the last time you saw the back of your refrigerator? Can you see the back wall, right? A lot of times people will just fill our fridges. There's so much stuff in there. We don't know what's in there. Think about it from the Sunday to Friday fridge. When you go to the grocery store or whenever you're starting your week, you might have a lot of stuff in there because, you're food prepped and you're ready for the days ahead. By the end of the week, before you go to the grocery store again, you really do want to be able to see the back of your refrigerator because you want to know it's time. I need to fill up. I need to restock. I need to bring things in. If we're keeping our fridges stocked all the time, we're really putting ourselves at risk for, one, food safety concerns because things are hanging out there longer than we need to. We're putting ourselves at wastefulness. If things are getting pushed to the back of the fridge, they've been back there for who knows how long, or more than likely, if we take these recommendations and we start to kind of clean and start from fresh, we're going to find that we're going to throw away a lot of things because they are expired, they are old. We're just not eating that anymore. They kind of got gross. So kind of keep that in mind, that we want this to be like a merry-go-round where it's like, okay, my fridge is full and by the end it comes back. There's less people, there's less food, it's empty. I need to go back to the store and we go back around and round. So can you see the back of your fridge? And I put down there how not to be wasteful. So another concern I hear a lot of folks talk about is, well, I'm part of the Clean Plate Club mentality. If it's here, I'm going to eat it. If it's on my plate, I'm going to eat it. And I don't want to be wasteful. I don't want to throw food away. Well, I want you to think about it like this. Our trash cans or our waste cans are meant to take trash. They're meant to take extras. They're meant to take the stuff that we don't need in our house anymore. If we are forcing those same things into our physical bodies, when we've identified that it's maybe above and beyond how hungry I am. I'm already full, but I'm going to finish it. Or I don't want to be wasteful, so I'm going to eat this thing that's in there. Maybe it's gone bad or it's questionable, or I just know that it's not the healthiest thing for me. If we put those things into our body rather than use our trash cans, what we're ultimately doing is treating our body like a trash can. And I hope that everyone's here because they're seeking information to enrich their lives and healthify their lives and feel stronger and feel better. And that does come from fueling our bodies correctly, putting the right foods in there in the right amounts. So challenging that idea of I don't want to be wasteful by throwing this thing away. If you've identified that it doesn't match your current health values, if it doesn't match your current health goals, you're not being wasteful by throwing it away. You would be wasteful by forcing yourself to eat it and treating your body like a trash can. I hope everyone has one of those in their home and they can use it appropriately. So just kind of keep that in mind. Do we want it to be wasteful in a wastebasket or wasteful like around our waist? The danger zone. So it's important that we're keeping our fridge and our freezers at the correct temperatures. The danger zone is between 40 and 140. And this is the temperature zone that we know bacteria can grow very rapidly. It puts us at risk for Salmonella, E. coli, all the kind of stuff that we hear about on the news that we got to make sure that we're not consuming. 40 to 140 is the danger zone when those things thrive. So we want to make sure that we're keeping our fridge and freezers at safe temperatures so that we're not in the danger zone. So we want our fridge to be 40 or less, ideally 39 or less. And then the freezer we would like at 0 degrees or below. One thing to consider is to purchase an external kind of sensor. You can put the sensor in the fridge, and then outside of the refrigerator, you would be able to see what that internal temperature is. I know I have one for my fridge and my freezer, and then it's just a magnetized thermometer reading on the outside of my refrigerator that tells me my fridge is at 38 and my freezer's at -2. And it's able to see kind of the ups and the downs. When you open that door, right, the temperature is going to go up a little bit. When your fridge is working really hard, it might come down a little bit. But that is definitely a safety idea. Some refrigerators will tell you what it is. Other ones, especially older ones, might just have some type of dial or, okay, set it to 4, a generic 4. Well, how do I really know what my fridge temperature is? So less than 40 and less than 0 are ideal for our fridge and freezers. And then it's important that we do not leave food out in the danger zone before it makes its way back into our refrigerator. The rule of thumb there is 2 hours. You do not want to leave any food in the danger zone for longer than 2 hours. Exception there is going to be outdoors or in a very hot environment. So let's think of something like, where do you get your fridge thermometers? Amazon. You can buy them from, you can probably get them from like Walmart, or really any grocery store might have them in like the kitchen aisle. I got mine from Amazon. You could probably find them in places like a Bed Bath & Beyond or like a home goods store, that type of thing. Amazon if you're online shoppers. Okay, sorry, I just saw somebody's question come through. So if the temperature is above 90, so I want you to imagine something like a summer picnic, right? And we, again, in a previous life, when we used to be able to get together with people, we would get together and we would all bring our foods, and it'd be potato salad and fruits and veggies and meats and buns, and we'd all leave them out on a picnic table and everyone would be able to pick. Well, if it's a really hot day, ideally you would get those foods back into a safe temperature for the freezer within an hour if they were exposed to 90 degrees or above. This also goes for when you grocery shop. So a lot of my friends make fun of me a little bit because I'm a little OCD about food safety. But like in the summertime, let's say that you have a long commute from your grocery store. If you're living far away and it's really hot outside, it's probably not a bad idea to bring maybe a couple ice packs, or if you have a cooler in the freezer. If you're bringing reusable bags versus like the plastic ones, you can put some ice packs in there so that the frozen stuff or the really cold stuff can sit on those ice packs as you're, driving maybe the 40-45 minutes home, especially in those really hot temperatures. Again, not necessary because it's within the 1 to 2 hours, but it can't hurt to keep things colder, right? So just keep that in mind. All right, let me make sure I didn't have any other notes. That was it. Some more recommendations. Like I had mentioned, the space between items. So the way that our fridges and freezers work is that they have this ambient cool temperature that is able to flow in between all of the products and keep them cold and keep them in temperature from all sides. If the fridge is so jam-packed, everything shoved in there, that airflow is not going to be able to be sufficient to keep your things cold. So you might have issues with food safety there. You would also have issues with not being able to chill your foods quickly enough to get them out of the danger zone within that 2 hours. So again, make sure that you're keeping that airflow. If you have access to that second fridge or freezer, definitely take advantage of that so that you can keep things apart and get that airflow. This also supports the idea that we really don't want to be overstocking our fridges when we grocery shop. So making sure that we're doing the Sunday, Friday fridge type deal. Maybe it's not Sunday to Friday, maybe it's different for your family. Definitely seeing this influx of food, and then we're releasing and we're getting that flow, we're getting that rotation, we're doing that first in, first out. First thing that goes in should really be the first thing that we come out or that we would consume. So in my house, that's really what dictates what we're going to be eating. If I made something on Sunday and we're at Tuesday, my husband's like, Monday leftovers sound good. Well, Sunday's the oldest. That's what we need to be eating because that's the first thing that went in, and that needs to be the thing that comes out now so that, again, we just have that healthy rotation and we don't end up getting locked into, shoot, I forgot that that was in there. It got pushed to the back. We've pushed it off so many, and now we have to throw it away. Keeping in mind that Americans have, well, they don't have to, but on average, there's about 40% food waste, which means that 40% of the foods that we are purchasing, we're throwing away, whether that's because they go bad before we can get to them, we're buying too much at once, we let them sit in the fridges too long, and then they pass their safe life, but 40% food waste. So when we think about the idea that healthy food is expensive, that buying healthy foods costs more, well, if we're throwing away 40%, we're just kind of tossing money into the fridge or into the trash from what we're currently doing. If we can really be more intentional about what we're buying, when we're buying, how are we eating it, what are our portions, are we getting that rotation in our refrigerators, that we're not having to toss things out, we might be able to free up 40% of our budget to be buying those healthier foods that might cost extra, the fresh produce, right? Maybe we have to do our click list twice a week instead of once. We have to go to the grocery store once a week instead of every other week. But if we can really minimize the waste and the food loss that we have from most standard Americans of about 40%, we're going to free up a lot of money that we can put towards those healthier foods. Labeling containers and bags. This is one way to definitely stay organized in our refrigerators. What is it? When did we make it? When do we think it's going to expire by, based on the information that was on those previous slides? How long is this going to stay in the refrigerator and be okay? Finishing directions. So maybe you're not the primary cook in the house, but you're going to be cooking for a family member that's there during the day while you're at work. Well, if that person doesn't really know what to do with that food, that whatever it might be, if we can include some type of finishing instructions to say, turn the oven on 350, bake this for 10 minutes, you know, that might give somebody else in the household the confidence to feel like they're not going to mess it up. They're going to feel confident it's going to turn out great. Again, just ways that we can minimize that food loss so that by the end of the week, you know, the cook says, oh, shoot, like we didn't eat these things. Why not? Now we got to throw them away. Maybe it is just a confidence. Maybe it is, I have no idea what this is and I can't reach you while you're at work. So let's throw a label on that. Other thing is inventory. So in the same way that we want to keep inventory of what's in our pantries, a lot of these same recommendations can apply of like, hey, what's back there, way in the back. Keep a tally or keep an inventory of the foods that you have. I know that my husband and I personally did this over quarantine when we were going out very, very, very little, trying to do as minimal as possible going outside, right? Well, it was, okay, how many servings of these different things do we have in the refrigerator, in the freezer? When can we do them? Let's mark them off, really getting back to like dire straits. Our fridge and freezer were empty by the time we had to go to the store because it was, hey, we only want to go out when we have to go out. So this is something that we can apply all the time. What is in the fridge? What's in the freezer? How much do I have of each? You know, what do I think I'm going to be doing with these things so that we don't end up going to the store and buying something that we already had because we forgot that we had it, that it was buried in the back, it was buried on the bottom and we had no idea. And now we're putting fresh stuff on top of it and it's just getting buried even more. So taking an inventory. Maybe you keep it on the side of your refrigerator. Maybe you keep it near your grocery list so that if somebody says, oh, okay, well, we need peanut butter. Well, actually, we have peanut butter on the list. We don't need to get that this time. We just need to grab it out from the back or something like that. Again, helps with managing our food budget so that we can free up those extra dollars to be buying more produce. All right. Where do we keep things in the fridge? Well, as you can see on the doors, that's definitely the warmest part of the refrigerator. Those are the parts that are going to see the biggest temperature fluctuations. So anybody that keeps their milk on the doors, please, if you don't do anything else from today, except one thing, please move your milk to the inside where it says the coldest. Take it off the doors. Dairy products can be a source of food safety, and when we have a big fluctuation in temperatures, you're just putting those products at risk to getting into the danger zone, back and forth, and it just can create an environment where the bacteria love to grow. So keep your milk in the fridge, not on the doors. What you see here is going to be your least perishable foods. So I want you to think of things like condiments on the doors, things like your mustard, things like your ketchup. Maybe you keep beverages. So this might be a place to keep something like your bubbly waters or bottled waters, things that can see some temperature swing without putting you at risk. You're going to see your leftovers, your eggs, your dairy, your meat, your seafood is all going to be in the base or the kind of body of the refrigerator. That's going to see the least temperature swing, and generally further back, closer to the back wall of your fridge is where it's going to be the coldest. You do have your produce drawers. Most of us will have two right there in the middle. I did keep a couple notes here because I get a lot of questions about those the produce drawers. First and foremost, buy produce you're going to eat. I have so many people tell me, well, I buy a head of lettuce and then it goes bad. Well, that's what happens if we don't eat it. It's fresh produce, little tidbit. You want your food to be able to go bad. When food doesn't go bad, AKA a Twinkie, it's not food. Food needs to be perishable. It needs to be able to go bad. A Twinkie can last for decades and decades and you can still safely eat it. That is a food-like product, not real food that our body wants. So if food's going bad, it's not the food's fault. It's that we're just not using the food quickly enough, effectively enough, or maybe not storing it correctly. With produce, a lot of times we put our produce in those drawers, we close the drawers, and especially if you don't have see-through drawers, out of sight, out of mind, totally forget it's there until I open up the fridge, something smells bad, what is it? You open up the drawer and something is rotting. If you know that about yourself, do not waste your money, keep the produce out of the drawer. Maybe you need to leave it where it says eggs, dairy, meat, seafood. Maybe we need to do a little quadrant in the body of our fridge that's not in the drawer if we know that we forget about it. In sight, in mind, out of sight, out of mind. If produce is something that you struggle to remember to eat or that does go bad on you quickly, keep it visible so that you can't forget that it's in there. In terms of folks that do use their drawers, generally two drawers, low humidity, high humidity. The low humidity is going to be, as a general rule of thumb, for the foods that rot easily. I want you to think of like a lot of fruits, things like your berries, your stone fruits, things like plums, maybe your avocados, things that can just ripen and go bad quickly. We keep those in the low humidity drawer. Your high humidity are going to be things that generally wilt quite easily. So think of things like asparagus, or green leafy vegetables, your lettuce, that type of stuff, we would keep in the high humidity drawer, and we do keep these separate. Another rule of thumb is that you generally keep your fruits and your veggies separated. Reason being, a lot of fruits naturally emit their ripening gas, their ethylene gas, which helps them to ripen. They can emit a lot of that, and if we mix our fruits and our vegetables, it can cause those veggies to ripen and go bad a lot quicker. We definitely want to keep those separate. And then also, as a rule of thumb, potatoes, onions, and tomatoes, we do not keep in the refrigerator. Those are foods that we can absolutely leave out on the counter at room temperature. Let's see if there are any other suggestions I have here. I've got everything. And then obviously your freezer, ice, your frozen stuff, stocks, meats. One thing that we're going to get to at the end of this, I'm just going to put a little teaser out there. Other things to keep in the fridge that you might not, fridge or freezer, that you might not think about are your nuts. So these would be like your snacking nuts or your baking almonds, baking walnuts, things like that. And it's just because they're going to stay fresher longer, which I'll get to in a little bit. Okay, moving into our foods. What are the things that we should be keeping in the fridge? What are things that we should phase out as we start to kind of clean house? Well, what you're going to see there are a lot of processed, already made convenience items. These are things that are going to be packaged goods that are going to be kind of ready to eat. And I would say for almost everything on there, one of the biggest concerns is going to be sodium. When we purchase prepackaged convenience, pre-made foods, a lot of food manufacturers will use sodium not only to flavor food, but also as a preservative. So most of these foods are going to give you a hefty dose of that sodium, which Americans are consuming too much of as it is. General rule, no more than about 2,300 milligrams of salt a day, salt or sodium. Average American is consuming over 3,400 milligrams. So prepared, packaged, already made foods are a great place to start, so they can pack a lot of sodium into a relatively small portion. Frozen dinners, pizzas, garlic breads, these are things that you would be much better off making yourself. Fridge mixes such as mashed potatoes, your pre-made potato pasta, deli salads, things that you would buy fresh in the deli. You are absolutely better off making these from scratch with your own recipes so you can control all of the ingredients that go into them. Take out the stuff that you know your body doesn't need versus these mixed dishes. You can put a lot of stuff in there, especially if you start to read that ingredient list. It's ingredient after ingredient after ingredient. So definitely going back to basics, doing it from scratch as much as possible. Coffee creamers. I know that these make our coffee taste delicious in the morning, but they are a very, if you're buying the regular full sugar varieties, they are a very sneaky place to get lots of sugar. And keep in mind that liquid sugar or liquid carbohydrates, in the same way that I have juice mixes and bottled juices at the bottom there, liquid carbohydrates turn into blood sugar faster than really anything else. To put it into perspective, a 4-ounce glass of OJ takes about 15 minutes to get converted to blood sugars. Boom, happens very quickly. So we do want to be mindful of those liquid carbs. A lot of Americans are struggling with prediabetes or diabetes. So watching those carbohydrates and really choosing the highest quality. We definitely want to be eating or chewing our carbohydrates, not drinking them as much as possible. On the flip side, if you get these sugar-free coffee creamers, they're going to have a lot of artificial sweeteners in them. So if that's another concern, it's just something that can add up very quickly. Couple recommendations would be to sweeten your coffee naturally. So some folks might put a couple dabs of vanilla extract into their coffee to give it a little bit of sweetness without all that sugar. Other folks will grind their beans or mix into their beans some ground cinnamon before they go to make the actual liquid coffee, so that you get some of that natural sweetness from that ground cinnamon within the greens as it comes through, but you don't have to add any added sugars to the mix. I put on there American cheese and cheese product or cheese-like product. There's a spectrum when it comes to labeling cheese. There's true cheese, and we live in the dairy state, and we want to be focusing on real cheese, versus as we go down the line, cheese-like product. It doesn't have all of the same defining characteristics as real cheese. It's got a lot of added ingredients to it. Certainly, cheese should not be coming out of an aerosol can. We want to minimize those. We want to leave those at the grocery store. We want to be purchasing whole cheese, which we'll talk about a little bit. But again, with those juices, any type of liquid carbohydrate, trying to minimize as much as possible, focusing on whole fruits over just the juice. By consuming the whole fruit, you're going to consume the fiber and the vitamins and minerals that come from its whole form, especially if we're eating the skins of foods that we can, such as apples. We want to eat the skin. We don't want to kind of peel that off because that's going to be a really good source of fiber, really focusing on whole fruits versus just their juices. What are things that we want to phase in? Fruits and vegetables of all kinds, fresh and frozen. I have a lot of folks that'll say, oh, are those frozen vegetables that good? I hear that fresh is best. It really depends. So when we talk about something like blueberries, well, we're not making any blueberries here in Wisconsin in January. It's not the season. It's way too cold out there. They're not growing through the snow. So to buy fresh blueberries, you have to know that you're getting those from very far away. They're traveling in, they're coming in on boats and planes and trains. So they're potentially losing a good bit of their nutritional value during that travel time versus frozen blueberries or any frozen fruit or vegetable. The rule is that they need to be frozen within 24 hours of harvest. And so as long as a fruit or vegetable is on the tree, on the vine, on the plant, it's getting nutrients and it's not losing any of the nutritional value, the vitamins, the minerals. Once we pluck that off the vine, it is going to start to, for lack of a better term, start to die. It's going to start to lose some of its nutritional value because it's not getting anything new from the roots, from the plant itself. And so the longer the period of time between harvest and plate, the longer or the more that nutritional value could disintegrate. So if we flash freeze all of our frozen fruits and vegetables within 24 hours of harvest, we're limiting that loss of time to only a day. So to buy frozen blueberries in January, you're actually going to get higher nutritional value than if you were to purchase the fresh varieties here in Wisconsin. One thing with the frozen is to please just make sure that you read the ingredients list and that the only things that are listed on that ingredient list are the vegetables that you're purchasing. That might come with sauces, it might come with seasonings, they might add in some sodium-laden things. Just make sure if you are purchasing any, especially frozen vegetables, that the ingredients listed are just the veggies. Other things to phase in are things like hummus, guacamole, salsa. These are great salad dressing alternatives and great healthy dip alternatives instead of things like our ranch, our Thousand Island, French onion dip, those type of things that are going to have a lot more saturated fat. It's not so great for the heart, but things like hummus that are made with chickpeas, guacamole that's made with avocados, salsa that's generally made with, your tomatoes, your peppers, your onions. These are going to be a lot more heart healthy and just overall really great refrigerated items to keep on hand. In terms of your dairy, please make sure that you are watching the sugar content in dairy products and even non-dairy products. So we think of things like almond milk or soy milk. Dairy in and of itself, a glass of milk, plain yogurt, these are good sources of calcium, good sources of protein. But once we start to add in the flavors, whether it's the strawberry, banana, the kiwi, the vanilla, whatever it might be, those are going to be sources of added sugars. So please make sure that you're reading the nutrition facts label as well as the ingredients list. Know what you're purchasing. We want to be purchasing plain as much as possible and adding in our own. So if you're not a fan of, let's say, plain yogurt, I get it. It's tangy. It's got a little bite to it. Add in your own frozen fruit the night before, whether that's a half cup of blueberries, a half cup of frozen peaches, mix it up into that plain yogurt, leave it in your refrigerator overnight. As those fruits thaw in the fridge, they are going to release their natural juices. When you go to have that yogurt the following morning, your yogurt is now blue because blueberry juice came out of the blueberries, not because they added blue number 5 and some added sugars. Really trying to get back to those one ingredient foods. It is what it is. I can mix and match how I want, but I'm not buying a product that already has 28 ingredients in it because that doesn't give you a whole lot of kind of freedom and flexibility. Lean proteins, when we use the word lean, what we mean is low in fat. And the reason why we want to focus on low fat proteins, especially animal based, is because a lot of the fat that we get from our animal products, things like chicken skin, steaks, pork chops, egg yolks, those type of animal products, they're going to be a source of saturated fat. This is the type of fat that we want to minimize while replacing with unsaturated fats. So kind of a good rule of thumb is get your fats from plants, minimize your fats from animals. Plant-based fats, nuts, seeds, avocados, olive oil, veggies, that kind of stuff, those are going to be a source of good heart healthy fats. Animal-based fats like cheese, butter, lard, highly marbled steaks, however tasty, I know, they're just primarily a source of saturated fat, which is not as good for our heart. And then also keeping a lot of good beverages, no calorie beverages in the refrigerator. So your waters, sparkling waters, whether that's bubbly, LaCroix. How do you feel about adding honey or maple syrup to non-fat Greek yogurt? Sorry, I'm trying to catch them as I see them coming through. Let me just ask the question how I feel about adding honey or maple syrup to non-fat Greek yogurt. Please keep in mind that however natural those foods are, they are still pure sugar and they are still going to respond in our body and in our blood sugars the same as an added sugar would just based on how they're digested. You are better off getting your sweetness from things like adding some cinnamon, adding a dab of vanilla extract, adding those fresh fruits, and mixing all of that together so that you're getting that sweetness or those sugars in more natural forms that aren't going to have such an impact on our immediate blood sugar response. Water and sparkling water. So things like our sparkling waters, our flavored waters, Pellegrinos, things that are going to help to keep us hydrated without giving us extra calories, without giving us extra sugars, or even sodium. Keep in mind that a lot of diet beverages, whether it's diet sodas or diet waters, vitamin waters, things like that, they will have sodium added. Reason being, the sodium content helps to kind of balance out the sweetness that we get from the artificial sweeteners that are used in those products. And so more often than not, your diet sodas and diet drinks are going to be a source of sodium. And again, Americans struggle with too much of that, so just be mindful that it might be sneaking into a beverage that you were otherwise unaware of. Additional fridge considerations. So this is where I mentioned earlier about the nuts and seeds. So whether this is stuff like your flax seeds, your chia seeds, hemp seeds, your almonds, your walnuts, your peanuts, whatever it might be. The reason why these are things to consider keeping in the fridge or the freezer, depending on how often you're using them, is because the fat that's in nuts and seeds can be highly affected by light and temperature, and it can turn the product rancid a lot faster. It can also degrade the unsaturated fats that are in those foods. They're not as stable as saturated fats, so they can definitely be impacted by external circumstances. By keeping them in the fridge and the freezer, you reduce the amount of light and you reduce the amount of temperature swings that those nuts and seeds experience. They will last longer, they will stay fresher, and you will be doing a better job at taking care of those unsaturated, heart-healthy fats within them so that you're getting the most nutritional bang for your buck. Natural nut butters, so these are going to be things like your peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter. And when I say natural, what I mean is when you read the ingredient list, it says ingredients, peanuts, period. That all you're doing is purchasing ground up peanuts. There's no palm oil, there's no sugars, there's no sodium, there's no other stuff that's added to a peanut butter spread. Think of like a traditional Skippy. Those natural nut butters that are just the nut themselves are prone to separating. So if you've ever seen them in the grocery store on the shelves, you'll see that oil's at the top and then the actual like peanut butter's below it. That happens when you don't have all those additives that are keeping it basically emulsified. The little trick of the trade is buy the natural peanut butter, take 30 seconds, mix it up, mix it all together, store it in your refrigerator, and it will not separate back out. So you only have to fix it that one time. Ripened produce like avocados. So if anybody here is a Costco fan, you know that when you buy things in Costco, you're buying them in bulk. And if you're a family of 1 or 2 or 3, sometimes it's hard to get through them without them going bad. So make sure that you're keeping those ripened fruits in the refrigerator. They will last significantly longer. I will tell you from personal experience, when I go to Costco and purchase that bag of avocados, I think there's normally like 5 or 6 in a bag. I'm the only one in the house that's eating the avocados. I leave them once they've ripened in my refrigerator, and they will last for easily a week or 2, maybe even longer, and I have no problems. Once they're ripened, keep them in the fridge. And then whole grain flours and whole grain breads. These are good things to keep in the fridge or the freezer for the same reason that we talked about those nuts and seeds. Whole grain flour and breads, or anything that's made with the whole grain, is going to come with all parts of that wheat kernel or that grain kernel, and it can be very sensitive to, again, light and heat. So by keeping it in the fridge and the freezer, you help to extend the shelf life, you help to extend the quality, you also get to ensure, again, you're getting the most nutritional bang for your buck. So keeping all that good nutrition in there, kind of in the same way that we want to buy frozen blueberries in the winter because that nutrition's all locked in. Same thing with this. By keeping it in the cupboard for a year, you're just risking that the nutrients within it just start to degrade and you're not getting all that bang for your buck. And then things to phase in moderation. So I put cheese on here and even egg yolks. One, we live in the dairy state, and I would never tell anybody they have to give up cheese completely. That would be ludicrous. We're not going to do that. But the reason that it's in moderation is because things like cheese and egg yolks are really animal proteins in general. Again, bring us back to that saturated fat. We want to make sure that we're not overdoing it on the animal type fats. So one recommendation for cheese to kind of get the best bang for your buck is ask yourself when you're eating cheese in a mixed dish, whatever that might be, whether it's a salad or it's a casserole or whatever, can you taste it? A lot of times when I think about like, okay, I'm going to put together a salad or I'm going to put together a sandwich, if it's a mild tasting cheese, so you might put some like mozzarella whips or something on a salad, do you really taste them? Like taste the flavor of them mixed into the vegetables, the dressing, the other stuff. If you don't taste it, is it really worth eating? Is it really worth using up your calories, your carbs, or whatever it might be? Can apply to anything. But is it worth it? So with cheese, I really like to focus on those stronger tasting cheeses, things like feta, blue cheese, gorgonzola, pecorino, Parmesan, cheeses that just have a little more of a bite. Because now not only am I getting to enjoy it, but I can also use a smaller quantity of it and still be able to incorporate it into my recipes without blowing that saturated fat or calorie budget. Certain condiments, please be discerning. There are definitely better condiments than others. So things like mustards are a great low-calorie taste addition to a whole host of foods. Pesto is a great heart-healthy condiment to keep on hand, not just for pasta sauces, but you can put it on sandwiches as a spread. And pesto being an Italian basil-based sauce that's made with a lot of really good olive oil. They put pine nuts in there. These are going to be good heart healthy fats. Hot sauce is a great way to build a lot of flavor with very few calories, very few of anything. So you can use a little bit and really boost those flavors versus maybe our more traditional condiments that we would keep on hand, like mayonnaise and shelf-stable salad dressings. Those are things that just can come with a lot more ingredients, a lot more sodium, a lot more fat. So definitely be discerning about the condiments that you're keeping in the fridge. And then sweet treats. These are things that I can definitely appreciate. We want to be able to enjoy a little sweet now and then. Frozen fruit bars can be a more natural way of getting that cool, cold, frozen, desserty type thing without having to add in a bunch of saturated fats. And especially if it's a bar or if it's one sandwich or an individual portion, it's an individual package, that's one way to help kind of moderate how much of it we eat versus buying a big old thing of ice cream and we don't want to get a dish dirty. So we just take the spoon and we do one of these. And then before we know it, half of it's gone and you say, where did it all go? Inside of you. So buying those individual portions of things can help to just moderate our portions just naturally. Another alternative sweet treats, maybe a more natural thing, is throw some bananas into the freezer and throw a frozen banana with maybe a tablespoon or so of creamy nut butter into your blender, mix it up. It's going to stay cold, it's going to be tasty, but again, you're focusing on real foods, you're focusing on one ingredient foods. It's a banana and it's ground up peanuts or almonds. So you get that little tasty bit, but it's in a lot more natural, healthy way.